Well, good morning. It is February the 16th, 2026, and straight from the Highlight Caffeine studio, this is According to Willie B, and I, yours truly, am the host for the next half hour. So, first of all, I have to apologize to my audience because I had a 2 week faux pas. Yes, yours truly made not one mistake, but two. And I want to make sure that I address this. I've had some listeners that are very loyal, and I wanted to address this so that everybody is on the same page and knows what's going on. First of all, week before last, if you remember, was a very short episode. It was about, if I remember correctly, one of my listeners told me it was 14 minutes. And she said, and I know you weren't out of words to say. What happened with that episode was strictly my fault. I had not watched the counter. I had tried a new format for the show, just trying to always improve, to be better every single week that I come on, to try to be better than I was last week. And I didn't watch the counter, and so because I always try to at least try not to go past 30 minutes. And so I didn't watch the counter, and bada boom, bada bing, there we go. It was 14 minutes, and I never realized it. Um, so there's that. So there's that episode. I do apologize. I do have that counter right in front of me to make sure that we go because I did. She's right. I did. I had more to stay. So I appreciate people when they call me out. I told you guys you can't hurt my feelings. Just let me know whatever you think. If you don't like something, let me know. The second part was last week. Last week was a repeat episode, and it was for a couple of reasons. Number one, I thought it was kind of cool to re upload the first episode that we did here on According to Willie B. And it was actually exactly 1 year ago when it came up for that episode. So I thought, well, I'll repost the very first episode, and it was cool. I got some good vibes from that. But the other part of the story was that I was sick. And yeah, you did not want me to get behind this mic coughing and hacking, and no. And I may still have a little bit of a cough throughout this one, but I will try to do my best to keep it to a very minimum. I have my watcher here to help keep it down. So it's not out of the woods yet, but feeling much, much better. But there was no way that I could do two back to back podcasts. It's a lot of talking. It's a strain on the voice. But anyhow, so that's what happened. And since that happened, it gave me an opportunity before we get into today's actual content. It brought up an interesting point. You know, when you plan a trip, and we talk about all the time about how you have to plan and you have to plan for everything that can happen. And we've had the conversations of do I get travel insurance? And I'm going to give you a very confident answer on that today. And the answer is yes, 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 yes. Because you never know what can happen. And the last thing you want to do is spend your hard earned money that you've worked all year for. You want to plan your vacation. You want to put in for your time off from your job, et cetera, et cetera. And then 2 or 3 days before your trip, you get sick. And there's nothing you can do about it. Now, I know there are people who say, "Well, if I'm able, I'm still going to go." Well, that's really not recommendable, especially you get on a train, you get on a plane, you're cooped up and the air is just circulating, and now you've gotten 300 and some odd people sick, or you've at least shared the germ or the virus with. So that's not cool. So because you don't want to ruin their vacation either. So it can happen, and it could be more than just you getting sick. Like we travel with Danny and Kelly, so there's four of us, and we got a big trip coming up in the fall. If one of us gets sick, right? I mean, what do you do? Well, you want the trip to go as you plan with all four people. So Do you replan the trip? I mean, there's a lot of questions there to be asked. So, yes, buy the insurance 100%. Because now, like I use National for a rental car, and they're very forgiving all the way up to almost like 36 hours. And I have canceled 24 hours before to pick up my rental, and that's unheard of. Um, you've got your airlines, which are about as unforgiving as a hotel chain. So, you know, definitely plan for anything that might happen, and get that travel insurance so that you're covered. Because the last thing you want to do is lose your money or lose your trip and then not be able to rebook it because you lost out. You're on your airfare, lost out on your all your hotel money. So it's after being sick like this and it just hit me out of nowhere. Yeah, I would definitely stand on team buy insurance, buy travel insurance. Um, and there's a lot of different ones out there, and I would like to do an episode in the very near future on strictly travel insurance because there's that much to consider. So I will make sure that I do some research and I come back with a episode in the very near future, and we're going to talk about travel insurance. Not the whole episode because that would be extremely boring. Nobody wants to talk about insurance for an hour or a half hour. Okay, so what content did I have for you today? One of my favorite things as a foodie is street food. I love street food. It's because it's like food in the wild, wild west, if you will. Okay. So there's no, you know, there's no structure. You just walk up, you hand them your money, and they hand you a food substance wrapped in maybe it's paper, maybe it's cardboard, maybe it's just in your hand. I mean, it's kind of all when you talk about around the globe. There's a lot of different street foods out there that you don't question it. You just eat it, and because it's an experience. It's not. If you want a meal, you go to a restaurant, you sit down, and you get a meal. If you just want to eat, if you want to experience the culture, if you want to experience where you are, then you need to dive off into street food. And people say, well, what about germs? And what about, trust me, don't worry about germs when it comes to street food. I don't know what it is, but you don't have to worry about it. No, I'm kidding, but um, I honestly don't. I've eaten some street food from some very questionable facilities, but I'm still here. Might had a rough day or two afterwards, but I'm still here. So the street food I want to talk to you about today, and I'm going to do some different ones throughout the upcoming episodes, but street food in America versus street food in Rome. Street food in America is like, here, eat this, you're busy. Street food in Rome is like, relax, stand there, think about what you've done. Now, I don't want to do that because it usually means I've done something. And according to Willoughby, one feeds your appetite and the other feeds your soul. And that's what I'm telling you. Street food is so different. So, what street food says about a place. So, street food is the most honest food in any country. I'm telling you, there's no rules. So, this is honestly telling you, hey, this is where I'm at. And this is what this culture is all about. No white tablecloths, no tweezers to pick up the little crumbs off the table. It's just food, and it's food that works. Look, America moves fast. Rome slows you down. That difference is culture. American street food is loud, confident, and a little reckless. They've been to a taco stand or a barbecue, little barbecue like roadside thing. Yeah, you're gonna wear half of it. I promise. At least I will. You hover while you're eating, leaning on trash cans, holding food that is losing structure, aka a lot of tacos. And napkins, well, all they are is just emotional support paper. So there is that. Um, you know, there's actually in America, you've got two different types of street food. You've got your regular street food from, say, taco trucks or food trucks, etc. Festivals and fairs, that's a whole nother level of messiness. Getting something from a fair. Have you ever been to a state fair and gotten something that was wrapped in? They called it paper when they handed it to you, but it's slowly degrading just as the structure of the food is being presented, and it's you're going to wear it. I mean, or you're at least going to lose half of it on the ground. But that's part of the experience. I mean, I can think back on a lot of state fairs that I've been to, and it's like, wow, you know, I got these curly fries that were literally hanging out of the basket, and you're trying to juggle that and your bag that you're carrying around because you picked up a lot of stuff at the state fair, and I mean it's a juggling act, man. And but it's the street food is about thinking about where you are at that particular moment, and it's making that food becomes the memory of where you are at that particular moment, if that makes sense. And then you've got a third category of street food. Now, some people don't call this street food, but I think in America, I think this should qualify. I know what some of you are going to say. I think this should qualify as street food in America because America is one of the countries that does this the best, and that is late night food. And I know the first thing you're going to think of is Waffle House. I mean, Waffle House and Denny's are two of those places that you didn't go there for food. You went there because your stomach said it was hungry, and it's late and nothing else is open, and it's like, this place looks reputable. Yeah, every one of you that's ever eaten at a Waffle House or a Denny's, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can see, we're not, you know what, we're not going to describe that because we're talking about food here. But late night food isn't hunger, it's regret management. I mean, you negotiate with yourself, with your past self, and somehow eat one of the best hot dogs of your life or one of the best waffles that you think you've had of your life. And it's just in that moment. And that's the thing that we have to remember is that we have to make every moment matter. And I don't care if you travel across the globe or across the street. You can make a memory. And food is to me. I had somebody challenge me the other day, and they lost. And I told them, "Well, now you owe me lunch." And I'm going to tell you what the bet was. They were talking about our YouTube channel, Culinary Highway, and they said, "Man, you've really are bringing that channel around. I've noticed you made a lot of changes, and it's getting sharper. It's getting more on point. Yada yada yada." And I said, yeah, I truly enjoy doing that because me being a foodie. And I said, I can remember everything that I ate in every one of those episodes. And they're like, there's no way. It's been just a little over a year. There's no way you could remember everything you ate by memory. I said, you pull up you pull up the Culinary Highway on your phone, and I said, you pick the episode. I don't care how far back it is, and I will tell you what I had to eat. And so this person went through 6 different videos, and I named every single thing, and it's like, oh my God, I remember there I had this pasta, and it had this short rib in the middle of it, and that short rib just fell apart, and they're like, okay, obviously you remember it. And I said, that's what I'm trying to tell you. To me, food, when I travel, is, and not just when I travel, but pretty much on a daily basis, if you will. But food is it's a memory. It's a because it invokes a lot of your different senses. It invokes your taste, your smell, your eyesight. I mean, it pretty much incorporates all of your senses all into one. So it makes sense to realize that that can be one of the biggest memory makers that you have. Case in point, when they asked me about this one video and I went into the pasta and just started just describing this pasta and what was in it and how good it was and the ingredients, I said, now I get it. Because I have you ever smelled something and it reminds you of something that happened years ago? Well, I think I shared with y'all back in one of the Florida episodes where I had the same thing when I was 10 years old. And it was in San Augustine, Florida. And I remember going into this shop and they had this candle and it smelled like citrus. It had like a citrus, but it was like an orange citrus, if you will. I've never smelled anything like it ever again. But that smell is just implanted into my brain. But there's nothing else to trigger that memory. No, there's no visuals, there's no taste, there's nothing. It's just that smell. And when I think of that smell, I can visualize myself back in that little shop. But that's it. I'm just standing in the middle of a shop full of souvenirs, and that's I think why I really enjoy food so much is because food, I get to taste it, I get to smell it, I get to see it, I get to touch it, I get to, well, you're not supposed to touch it unless it's supposed to be eaten with your fingers, but you know what I mean. But there's just, it invokes all of your senses, and so every sensory memory gland that you have is basically building this memory bubble around this meal. Who did you have the meal with? Where did you have the meal? What country were you in? And so it brings together all of those things. And that is the whole point of travel, is to build these memories. And that's why I love to incorporate food, because I get the entire experience. So let's talk about Rome street food. So Rome street food is quiet confidence. Pizza cut with scissors. I watched a video the other day and looking for the great street food of Rome, and it's it's like a common occurrence there where they cut pizza with scissors. There's no round blade and chop chop and it's all cut up into 8 slices. No, no, it's cut with scissors. Um, there's no rush. There's no yelling. You stand, you eat, and you exist. And for a moment, just a moment, life feels manageable. Now, why doesn't Rome innovate? Why don't they have a bunch of different foods and try to improve on things they've done? Well, here's the thing. Rome doesn't chase trends. They've already won. If it worked in 1542, I would think it would probably still work today. And it's been working every day since. And and Italy and different areas in that region have been very well known for their food and their street food. Um, it has seeped its way into America. That's how popular it is. So imagine going there and enjoying some street food. Now, this one, I, I'm going to make the statement, and you take it for what it's worth. Um, because in America, I will say, and I'm a proud United States citizen. I'm very proud of our country. You put up an American flag, and I will stand at attention, and I will definitely sing to the best of my ability the Star Spangled Banner. And it may hurt your ears, but I'll still sing it because I'm proud of our country. In America, you spend $14 and you say, worth it. And I've done that for tacos. I've done that for barbecue. I've done that for, and the list goes on. I've done that for chocolate covered bacon. You knew I was going to bring bacon into it somewhere. And in Rome, you're going to spend about €4 and then question your entire financial system. Look, you got different parts of the world and things are done differently. And one country's healthcare is this way and our healthcare is that way, and we're not going to dive off into that for sure. But my point is, when you get some street food, regardless of where you're at, let that food think about what you're eating. Think about where you're eating it. Think about who you're eating it with. And let that food, soggy napkin and all, let that food become that moment and build that moment into your mind so that you have a memory that you can look back on. And I promise you, when you're standing somewhere and you smell something that is even remotely similar to that, you're going to think, oh man, I wish I was back in wherever it was and standing there on that beach, and we were standing there with some friends and we had that, and it's going to unlock that whole memory. And you're going to find out right then, right there, that that $14 taco was worth every single penny. Not because how it satisfied your hunger, but because of how it made you feel in that moment when you remembered it. American street food is energy. Roman street food is rhythm. Eat where the people eat. Stand where the people stand. And everything else works itself out. I promise you. That's all I have for you today. I appreciate each and every one of you being, I'm going to say, patient with me over the last 2 weeks because we had a couple of faux pas. But it looks like we're back up and running now. Looks like I made it through the whole episode without a single cough and without a single word salad. I mean, I'm telling you, I am just beside myself. So I'm going to try to end this before I wind up and have 4 word salads right at the end. I do appreciate each and every one of you. We're still adding more merch to the website, www.accordingtowheeliebee.com. We do have another YouTube channel that has our podcast on it, and we also have a YouTube channel, Culinary Highway. And of course, I want to make sure that I tell you about the other podcast that comes out every week, which is Real Slot Talk with Wheelie Bee. And of course, it's broadcasted right here out of the highly caffeinated studio. I have to remind you of one thing, and I cannot let you go away without telling you, do not forget to caffeinate and conquer. And I appreciate you listening, and I'll see you next week right here behind this big old mic. Have a great day. Bye-bye.